everyone. Welcome to the Author's Lounge. My name is Paulette Henson, and I am excited to present to you today a special guest. She is a poet. She has three books, Alyysa Michelle. And so I am super excited to bring her on so she can share with you her book journey and her poetry and all of that. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Alyysa Michelle. I know you started writing poetry at a young age, so tell our audience a little bit about that, and then we'll talk more about your books.
Absolutely. So I am a writer, I'm a content creator, I am a self published author, and a mother. I did begin writing at the age of 15. It was something very small for me when I began writing sermonettes for youth Sundays at church. I was heavily involved with
Mm-hmm.
church as a teenager, and it was something I played with and in including, having those opportunities with writing for church, I also was learning about poetry at the same time while in school.
Mm-hmm.
I would learn about Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou. There were other authors that I would learn about, but I just got this inspiration from, being pushed to showcase my talent and then learning about other authors and poets at the same time. So it was something I continued to pursue throughout the years out of
Mm-hmm.
curiosity. And then it turned into something therapeutic for me because I was heavily introverted. So that was a way for me to express myself and also cope with whatever it is that I was going through as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I'm an adult, I'm a mother, it's something that I use not only to cope with what I'm going through, but also to educate others with how to navigate through the challenges that they may face in life.
Yes, wow, that is awesome. And when you talk about poetry, I hear that from a lot of poets. I have a poet show that I did for about 2 years, 2.5 years, called the Poets Lounge. And a lot of the poets that would come on there, they did exactly what you're saying. They turned their pain into purpose and they spoke about it, and it really spoke healing to the listeners, to them as well. And so it's a huge form of expression, um, in an intimate way, because poetry it's something very, very intimate, and it reveals your most personal fears and, like you said, whatever it is that you're going through, when you take a time out to write a poem about a situation, it reveals so much more. And so I commend you for that, because that is a tool for healing. It's a tool for wellness and to keep your mind, focused on things that you want to focus on, things that are productive. But, life will throw things at you that will, um, they're like curveballs, so to
Mhm.
speak, and then they'll distract you. So, tell us a little bit more about, as you're moving along through your writing journey. You're an adult now, you're a mother, and life is lifing. So, tell us a little bit about, when you made the decision to pull all your poems together, or a group of them, and to formulate your book.
So that was an interesting process for me because I self published.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it wasn't something that I automatically wanted to do. I had a bunch of author friends who had encouraged me to do. There were about two of them I had
Mm-hmm.
worked with. And, they had books of their own and they knew I was a poet. So they said, Alyssa, you really should write your own book. And I was like, you know what? I think I will. Once I set my mind on accomplishing something, I do it, no matter how hard
Yes.
it is, how uncomfortable or unfamiliar it is, I get it done.
Yes. Yeah.
So I went on to just self-publish, and the process was faster than I thought it would be. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing that I had little hiccups with is, editing.
Mm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
didn't let that stop me. It was more so I was determined to share my work. So
Yes.
that's what gave me the purpose of completing the project, was because I was a first time author. Not many people knew that I was a poet at that time. And I was like, this is a way for me to put my foot in the door of networking and doing more than just going on stage and,
Mm-hmm.
performing poetry. So
Mm-hmm.
the process wasn't as tough as I thought it would be. It was
Right.
more so liberating for me because I was stepping out into a new world. And
Yes.
as soon as I accomplished that, I was really proud of myself
Yeah.
because I didn't know anyone in my family that did that. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, and look at me. I went
Yeah.
from being shy and introverted to, hey, this is who I am now.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
And so I love that. I one question that comes to mind is in that moment when let's say you spoke your first poem out loud to an audience. Tell us a little bit what that was like for you. Like the inner part as you're speaking it. What were you feeling in those moments?
Nerve wracking. um, I was always very uncomfortable with being in the spotlight, even though parts of me liked the spotlight,
Yes.
because I knew that everyone was watching me. And if I made a mistake, I couldn't take that mistake back. So it was more so, being comfortable with speaking up on a stage as an introvert. And it took some time for me to be okay with it, but it was really me trying to tell myself, hey, this is another persona of yours, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're still Alyssa, but the extrovert that's been hiding for so long has to come out. You got
Yes.
to bring her back on stage here, front and center, because you have a lot to say. So
Yeah.
although it was nerve-wracking, it was also my way of connecting with an audience. So that gave
Yes.
me an even bigger push to not, you know, close
Sure.
up and run
Mhm.
off the stage, because I could have, but I chose not to.
Oh, awesome. And so okay, so moving past that, after your poem is complete and you get the applause, how did you feel and how did that solidify you and take you to the next level?
I felt seen, I felt heard. Afterwards, I was like, you know what? It really wasn't that
As bad.
difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It was just something I made up in my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? It was just fear. All it was fear. I had a lot
Yes.
of people that came up to me and said, you know what? I can really relate to what you just talked about. That was really good. And I was like, wow. I was taken back because I did not expect so much good feedback.
Wow. Wow. And I think a lot of times when you talk about the fear that's in your mind, um, I think that happens over and over again. That when you do something that you're fearful of doing, on the other side of it, you realize that it wasn't as big of a thing that you thought it was prior to. The hurdle was smaller, you were able to just jump over it, no problem. And
Absolutely.
so that's something that I think a lot of not only poets but anyone walking on stage and speaking their truth, there are a lot of, butterflies, and that's a natural feeling. However, once you take that breath and you go for it and you start speaking, that's when you've taken flight and you're on another level. And so it's crossing those barriers, and then you jump over to the next thing and then the next thing. And so when you look back, um, what would you say to that person that first started out, that first, you know, given that where you are today? What would you say to that person that was fearful and, you know, the introversion was taking control and, you know, what would you say to her?
I would say that someone wants to hear you, that no no one is really concerned with, you know, how nervous you may look at first. They're more interested in your message,
Yes.
and that what you have to say matters, and you're
Yes.
making a big step by even coming up on stage and being in the spotlight to share your voice with others and connect with others.
Yes, that's beautiful. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so you have three books published. Tell us about your first book. Let's talk about that, and then we'll get into the other two books you have.
Yeah, so Growing Pains, that was just a collection of poems that I had written over the span of a year,
Hmm.
possibly. That was more so about my own personal growth as a young woman and a mother.
Hmm.
I wrote about so many phases of growth that I had gone through, with me coming out of, you know, generational cycles, being aware of them, and
Yes.
then, you know, setting a goal for me to break them after I became aware of them, and wanting to have a vision of what my future would be as I grow.
Hmm.
So that
Hmm.
was Growing Pains.
Wow. Wow. And that's something that everyone can relate to, because it can be painful. There are things that, especially as a new mom, and that is a huge change from going, you know, when you have your first child. You are no longer that, you know, teenager, little girl, what have you. You are a grown woman now, and you're responsible for another person, and so it takes on a whole nother meaning of life. And so that's great that you were able to capture, you know, those times because they go by so fast.
Yes,
You
they
know,
do.
before you know it, they're in school. It's not like this little baby that's looking at you. They're big babies, you know.
Right.
So okay, so tell us about your second book.
The Awakening. So I
Mhm.
wrote that book when I was working with my mentor. It was just it I would say a follow-up of my first book.
Mhm.
It was just me diving deeper into my spiritual journey
Yes.
and noticing certain things, because someone can tell us something, but we may not recognize or understand what they mean at first until we really sit with ourselves for some time. So I
Yes.
just began noticing, you know, patterns that I broke, the lessons that I actually got from breaking them. So
Mhm.
before it was more so, you know, talking about what I had gone through, but the second book was wisdom that had been integrated into the poetry. So
Yes.
that's what the awakening was, just waking up to,
Right.
wow, this is who I am. This is what my potential looks like. And this is what I
Yes.
need to do in order to get there.
Yes. Wow. That is really amazing. And it sets a tone for, it's almost like a guide that for you and for other people reading your poetry to follow along because it's like it's going in a path, you know, from your first book to Growing Pains. Um, that it just those titles speak a lot to me. Um, Now, what about the next book, the third book? Is that part of, is it like kind of like a trilogy in a way?
It is. I did not
Mhm.
mean for that to happen, but I believe that my gift as a writer, I can write about things that I would like to happen in the future in a
Yeah.
way.
Hmm.
But that was more so blooming season with really owning who I am. You know, being aware of it and owning it are they're two different things.
Yes.
But you know, that one was at the time I had quit a job and I really needed to, you know, do something with my voice at the time. So that was more so a sneak peek into a chapter that I knew was going to come. I had a feeling that there were a lot of things that were on the way, but they weren't there at the moment.
Yeah.
So it was me finally being comfortable with talking about even deeper issues that I had come to realization with. That, you know, I said there are these generational cycles that I had broken, and I was more specific in exactly what I needed to take accountability for, even as a mother. And
Hmm.
that was another leap for me because, you know, taking accountability isn't very easy sometimes,
Right.
especially as parents when we know we've made mistakes. It's hard for us to admit it. And it takes a lot of effort and accountability to do better. So it
Yeah.
was even a deeper peek into, you know, where I'm headed as I'm blooming on my journey.
Yes. Wow. Wow. When you talk about generational cycles and breaking those cycles, that is a huge leap into you owning yourself and owning who you are and really stepping into that, because those cycles, they have just a huge bearing on you emotionally, because it's repeated, it's repeated over time. And so to talk about being accountable for yourself, and changing everything that was instilled in you, it's huge. It's a lot of people. I think we know that we have those cycles, and it's questionable. Is it something that I need to carry this on to my children and them, or not? But the world has changed over time, and so I think that that is the pivotal moment when you realize, okay, we're in a different environment than, let's say, our grandparents and great grandparents were in. And so and there's, there's technology, there's so much that's way different. We have more knowledge, and we're more aware of our mental state. We're aware of our emotional state and all of that. And so to really dive into that, and like you said, to be accountable is really to look at those things and check off, okay, this is okay, but this isn't okay. And
Mhm.
it's okay for me to choose not to go this path. And so it's really about freeing yourself and allowing yourself to make your own choices and create your own cycles that are, going in the direction that you see fit. And so I
Absolutely.
commend you on that, because, like I said, those are they're strongholds. That's the word that I'm looking for. That is it's given to you, and you don't even know when it happens. You just know that it's there, and you feel either some kind of way if you try to instill those things in your children in today's world. And so I completely understand that. And like I said, I commend you on even taking on that challenge, because that's where we are today. We can't live in our past. We have to live moving forward. we take the good things and we push away the bad stuff and try
Mhm.
to make something out of it, right?
Exactly.
Yes, yes. So that was your third book, is that correct? That was the
Yeah,
third book. Okay, so from what I'm hearing, it sounds like there are going to be more books to come. Because
absolutely.
there will be life is lifing situations and growth and your child's growth, all of that is going to encompass more poems from Alyssa, I'm sure.
Yes, you are correct. More is on the
Yes,
way.
yes. And so tell us a little bit about, when you go out, do you speak a lot out at poetry events? Are you, feeling more comfortable with your spoken word mission?
Absolutely. Working with my mentor for 7 years now
Mm-hmm.
definitely helped me be comfortable with my voice and speaking up. I had been on stage, off and on throughout the years because, again, life happens. And
Yes.
sometimes we need to really focus on what's more important at the time.
Right.
For me, if I were to go on stage now, I've been gone for some time, but I would set the stage on fire because I have a lot to say and I'm not afraid to say it anymore.
Yes.
Even though I did perform before, I still set limits on myself. So I would be ready to set a blaze to the
Inner
mic.
self. And so I commend you on the work that you've done. And
Thank
I
you.
know that you will continue to blossom and grow. And also, I want to mention to our audience that Alyssa, she was in the May, even talking to you now. I'm just like, wow, so nice to really get to know you and sit down and talk to you about, your journey. Because there's a lot of people out there that in the same boat. They have written poems and they have them in a book somewhere, and they're not sure if they should take that leap. And so, what would you say as we close our interview today? What would you say to that person that is on the fence and that was introverted as well and scared to get out? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say that there are people in the audience who will be happy to hear what you have to say, not just to hear it, but to feel it. There are
Yes.
people who go out to these events who want to feel that connection from someone.
Yes.
And I can relate. And a lot of the time, you know, getting over the fear is something that can be hard at first. But once you realize that there are other people who are also performing alongside with you, and you know that you're not alone, that also makes it easier because you have other people that you can also connect with as an artist.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Well, it's been a joy to connect with you today and to hear your story and just to hear, everything that you've talked about. It's blessed me, and I'm sure it's a blessing to those that will hear this video. So I welcome you to come back when your next book is on the horizon, and we'll definitely
Yes.
promote you again.
Thank
But
you.
thank you so much for being on the Author's Lounge today.